Hey Ken, how's it going? Good morning. Or
Yes, good morning.
good
How are
afternoon, I
you?
guess. Good afternoon.
Good, yeah.
Yeah, things are good. It's here. It's early morning. That's why I'm getting
Oh.
confused. Good morning wise.
Yeah,
Uh,
I know. The American time and Japanese time are almost opposite, so.
I know, I know. So how's life?
Yeah, kind of. I'm spending peaceful night. Yeah, I just ate the dinner. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Fantastic, awesome. Like nothing new happening, nothing crazy going on.
Yeah, nothing.
Just a relaxing night. That's good. That's good.
Mhm.
We're gonna get started in just a couple minutes, probably. And let's see, today we're going to be discussing, our topic is going to be actually prepositions of time.
Mhm.
So I'm sure you know what those are. We've seen these topics before many times. We'll be looking specifically also in the second part of the class at the 2014 World Cup in Brazil.
Mhm.
So one of the things I'm very interested about for this trip is, or for this event, is how the logistics are going to work out for that. Because you have like hundreds of thousands of people, millions of visitors maybe
Mhm.
coming to Brazil to, you know, participate in that country's,
Mhm.
um, you know, to, massive their first ever World Cup, I believe. So it's going to be uh, a big event, I think, for a lot of different people. And the Brazilians, I think a lot of the different kind of tourist companies and international companies that are going to be helping the foreigners, they've come up with a list of 5 tips on how to make this experience the best that it could be. And I mean, are you looking forward to it? Do you watch soccer? Or football, I should say?
Actually, I rarely watch the sports even because it's time consuming. But yeah, Olympic and World Cup or uh, kind of Major League or like a World Series or Japan Series. Kind of Japanese baseball tournament is called Japan Series, like Major League. Yeah, I watch these special sports event only.
Yeah, I think I'm the same way. Every once in a while, if there are friends of mine that are maybe getting together somewhere to watch something, then I'll join them more for the social experience.
Right.
But me myself, I don't usually just I don't have a habit of just watching sports when
Mm.
I need to, or when I want to myself. Yeah.
And recently, social media is pretty helpful for kind of getting involving these events, social events, because people comment on Twitter or some other social media or Yahoo chat or something like that, and I joined with hashtag or such kind of social media. It's it creates more kind of social event feeling, even though I watching the game on TV. Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, and it's one of the things that I think now you have people like tweeting
Mm.
constantly what's going on in
Yeah.
different games, and it's just, I mean, we're even more interconnected than we were, 15 years ago, 10 years ago,
Yeah.
and you can stream games to your phone, you can stream games to, you don't really need to be in front of a
Mm.
TV to be
Mm.
to be a part of the action. It's
Mm.
almost continuous, no matter
Mm.
where you are, laptop, phone, tablet,
Mm.
whatever, you'll be able to participate in the actual proceedings of the game. So
And
it's interesting to see, yeah.
I remember previous World Cup, not previous, hmm? Previous, yeah, maybe previous World Cup, I joined the Paltalk chat room, and people around the world, came together that room and talk about the game.
Yeah,
Yeah, that was fun. Yeah.
yeah. It's interesting. I don't know. I mean, I think specifically with the World Cup, there's more international excitement.
Mhm.
Like, I think
Yeah.
like even in the developed world, right?
Yes.
Or actually, I should say, even in the developing world, there is a little bit more um, appeal for the World Cup because the World Cup is easy to understand, right? I mean, for me at least, when I think of it, to try
Mm.
to explain to somebody. that the Olympics is
Mm,
because
yeah.
the Olympics people watch for specific sports. You
Mm,
know, like for example, my parents and a lot of people in the U.S. they really like to watch the gymnastics, like
mm, oh, yeah.
either the Chinese gymnastics people.
Mm,
You will either the Chinese gymnasts or also the Russian gymnasts. They
mm,
are usually some of the best. The U.S. also has really good gymnasts,
mm,
and we try to watch the gymnasts. People watch figure skating. People watch people watch the races.
mm,
Swimming like with Michael
mm,
Phelps last time.
yeah.
Things like that. But I don't know how many people actually watch like water polo or I mean those other
Mm,
kind of those random sports that are
right.
just kind of in the mix.
Yeah. Actually, the baseball used to be an Olympic game,
Hmm.
and Japan won. Japan and America or Cuba or these baseball are pretty strong. So they won a final tournament or something. That's a big game in Japan. But stadium, I'm talking about Australian Olympic stadium. There is almost empty. Nobody
Yeah,
is not interested in baseball in
I
Australia.
I think it was like I think it was Sydney. I think 2000,
Yeah,
2000 I think they had the
yeah.
Olympics. Yeah,
So
and
it was broadcasting here. Maybe it got a high viewers rate, but stadium were empty. So
yeah,
kind of, yeah.
it's not worth it to them, right? I mean, I think they said they were going to introduce some other sport now as an Olympic sport. I think this time around, I don't know. Usually shooting and archery are both kind of fun. I like to watch some of the shooting matches, but overall, it's not something that is. Overall, the World Cup has enormous appeal. I think
Mm,
all over the world because like
yeah,
you go into like the slums of
right.
Brazil, you go into the developing world. Even the poorest people know that the World Cup is
Mm.
happening.
But how about in America? Because soccer is not so popular in America.
Yeah, it's starting to get there. It's starting to get there actually.
Mm.
So maybe 15 years ago, really no one cared.
Yeah, because I watched the interview, the Japanese TV staff interviewed
Hmm.
American people. At that time, World Cup is holding in America, or American soccer team, uh, you know, won the number eight, or maybe but the people on the street didn't know that.
Yeah, a
Yeah.
lot of people still don't know that. I think even today, I think the Olympics, the only place in the world maybe where the Olympics has a little bit more appeal
Mm,
is maybe the U.S.
mm,
And maybe places like Canada and Australia also,
mm,
you know, because they're not really that big into. Australia doesn't really have a massive football following, I don't
mm,
think.
mm,
Same thing with Canada, right? So these countries, I think they would be a little bit more, um, they would tilt a little bit more towards the Olympic side. But if you look at, I think the world population,
yeah.
definitely the World Cup is much more
I think
popular.
so. Soccer is the
Yeah,
most popular sports in the world. Yeah.
exactly, exactly. So
Yeah.
it's interesting to see that that's kind of the dichotomy. There's a difference. We see a few countries in the world that have this crazy passion for the Olympics,
Mhm.
and then everybody else really has a much higher passion for the World Cup.
Mm,
And because it's simple. I mean, literally, the kids in the
mm,
slums of every major you
mm,
know country are playing soccer. Except for
yeah.
maybe the U.S. The U.S. here, the kids play
Mm.
baseball or football or whatever like that.
Because the soccer kids play soccer only by the ball. But others was like baseball or American football requires a lot of how can I say gloves or bats.
Yeah, all kinds of
So poor
equipment.
kids maybe cannot buy that, even the bats and gloves.
Exactly,
Mm,
exactly. All kinds of equipment is necessary
yeah.
if you need to play, if you want to play, any other sport. But really,
Mm,
the most, probably the most simple game in terms of equipment needs is soccer.
mm,
Just get a ball. That's it.
yes, that's right.
You know.
Mm,
So it's absolutely crazy. But And so let's take a look then, Ken. Let's get started. I don't think anybody else is going to join us. 6 a.m. I don't know why it's early here, so I can understand why people wouldn't join. But in other parts of the world, it's this is a normal time, but it's usually not a very popular time. So okay, Thanks for joining, though, in any case. We will get started. So when we look at prepositions of time, Ken, right, we look at these words, for example, on, at, right, in, and then before and after, right? So these are prepositions that we use specifically when we are talking about, when things will happen in the future, or when we are talking about when things are happening. They can be in any tense, really, you know. And we are talking about, overall, it's how do things relate in time, relate to each other in terms of time, right? Does something happen at a certain time? Does something happen on a certain day? Does something happen in a certain decade or in a certain year, right? Does something happen before something? Does something happen after something? You know, so when we use on for specific days and dates, right? That's really the biggest focus. So when we use on, we are talking about, for example, the difference between days and dates in English. A day is a day of the week, for example, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, right? A date, on the other hand, is a specific combination of number, or it has to include the number, right? A date includes the number. So I could say on the 13th, I will go to Mexico, right? Whatever. Or I can say on the 1st of January, the 11th of December 2014. I don't even know, but it has to include the number of the day, or it has to include a number value. The month, the day of the month needs to be incorporated into the date. So 7th, 1st, 31st, whatever it might be. And also we use on when we are talking about, for example, special days and holidays, right? So you see, for example, on my birthday, or on Christmas, or on New Year's Day, right? Because these are the specific ways that we can use on. And then when we are looking at, right, at we use for an exact time, right? So on is when we're talking about days or dates or special holidays. At we use when we're talking about a specific exact time. Excuse me, sorry about that.
Right, bless you.
Yeah, thank you. It's a little chilly here, maybe that's why. But so at we use for example, excuse me, it's going to be a sneeze attack day today. Okay, so at we use for an exact time, right? And we use it specifically when we are saying, for example, I will be at work at 5 o'clock. So that one is using a specific preposition of place as well as a specific preposition of time, both of which in this case happen to be at, right? So I will be at school starting 7:30, or I'll be at school at 7:30, right? I will finish my work at 9 o'clock, right? So it has to be a specific time. However, it doesn't have to include a number, right? It doesn't have to include a number. It can also include, for example, it can also be something like midnight, lunchtime, dinner time, sunset, sunrise, right? Any of those specific times that not necessarily, they might change from day to day, right? For example, sunrise changes every day. By a minute, it gets higher or smaller, right? But as long as we're talking about a specific time, we can use at, right? And then, so any questions so far, Ken, on versus at when we use those two?
No.
Okay, so I'm going to take a pause here, and I'm going to introduce Humud. Hey, Humud, how's it going?
Hi, everything is okay.
Nice. Good to see you. So I'm going to ask you guys, we covered on and at, right? So we covered on and at in terms of prepositions of time. I want to pause for just a second, Ken, and I'm going to ask you if you could please tell me about some of the things that you have coming up today and this week using these two prepositions. Let's not look at in yet, just on and at. Yeah.
Okay. This week started on Sunday, and now it's 11:30. It's no. I came back at 10 p.m.
Mm-hmm.
today.
I came back at 10 p.m. today, right? Fantastic. So use two examples. This week began. This week began on Sunday, and I came back at 10 p.m. Right? Fantastic. It doesn't have to be anything real, right? It can just be fake, completely fake, right? And so, Humud, why don't you go and give us an example as well, using on and at for different days, or to describe activities that have happened to you this week, or you're planning this week, something like that.
Okay. I would go to the beach at 6 p.m. tomorrow.
Fantastic. I will go to the beach at 6 p.m. tomorrow. And what about something with on too, Humud, if you don't mind?
What about on?
Yeah, just another quick sentence with on, if you don't mind.
My pen is on the table, or is on the desk.
Yeah, good. That's for a preposition of place, right? Could you use it for, could you use on in the sense of time? Like, for example, Ken said, this week started on Sunday, right? So we can use on for both place and time. In this lesson, we're actually looking at the time aspect of it. So Ken said, you know, my this week started on Sunday. So what you said was perfect, but it's using on as a preposition of place. Could you use it on as a preposition of time example? Oh, okay, I guess he left. Sorry about that. I apologize, Ken. Sometimes people come in and out and I have no idea what's happening. So, okay, let's look at in then, right? So in, when we use as an example, right? In, when it comes to preposition of time, we use when we're talking about an extended period, right? So, for example, we might be talking about a month, right? Or a week. Really, a week is probably the shortest span of time that we can use in. For example, in the third week of August, I will go on vacation, right? I will go on vacation in the third week of August. So in, and we also use in when we're talking about, when we use the phrase in a few days' time, right? Which may be one of those exceptions to the rule, but we say, for example, in a few days' time, right? In a few days' time, which even though it might not be a long time away, it could really just be like next week. You know, a few days could be like 4 days from now. But we use in when we use some phrases like this, in a few days' time, right? So, but overall, right, in is used for longer time periods. So, for example, in 2017, humans will be robots. You know, I mean, whatever. Like, if I'm just making an example, in January, I will go to work. I will go back to work in January, right? Or even more lengthy expanse of time, for example, a century or a millennium, right? So in the third millennium BC, the Egyptians were beginning to construct their pyramids, right? Or in the Stone Age, people did not have access to modern technology, right? So tons of different examples that we can use, and in uses those longer time periods, right? So could you give us an example, or give me an example, then Ken, share an example of another sentence with in?
Okay, I'll be there in a minute.
I'll be there in a minute, right? That's another type when we say I'll be there in a minute, I'll be there in a few days' time. Yeah, fantastic. Right? So those are both good examples. What about if you want to use it for a longer period of time, like one of the more general examples?
In maybe longer time, in is used in a year, in 2013.
Exactly. So we see in 2013, you know, this is what happened, or this is what will happen, right? Different types of examples, and I think it's fair to say that in is used for. I think in is used a little bit more frequently because it's a little bit more versatile than on or at. Because in, like we're saying, we can use in these phrases in a few days' time, in the third week of August, in 2013, in the Stone Age, whatever, a lot of different types of examples in history books and things like that. I think it's interesting to see what the overall kind of when they try to give an overall view of a time period, they use a lot of ins, right? So it's interesting to see that. And last but not least, when we see before and after, right? These two are used when we are talking about events that happen when we want to reference something with another, right? So kind of the same way that we've been talking about, that all the prepositions of time, they use these prepositions to relate one thing to another. So for before and after, we use, for example, they are standalone prepositions of time. We don't need to put anything like on or in after these, before or after, right? We can just say, my mother will arrive before I return to school, right? Or, the news show will the game show will start after the news ends, or after the news program, right? We don't have to use any other prepositions, right? So what's another example, Ken? Just very quick example, a very brief example of a sentence with before and after, or after.
Okay. I ate dinner after swimming.
I ate dinner after swimming. Fantastic. You came home. First you went swimming, then you came home, and then you had dinner, right? Fantastic. Fantastic. So any questions, Ken, about the overall prepositions of time and things that we talk about?
Sometimes I'm confused at the beach or on the beach, in the beach, or confusing about the place, preposition of the place.
When prepositions of place, it's another one of those things that remember when we use at for a specific location, right? So we use, for example, somebody is waiting for me at the door, right? Somebody's waiting for me at the bus station, right? When we talk about certain locations, like school and work and home, I'm at school, I'm at home, I'm at work, right? The beach works in the same way, right? I'm at the beach, right? Because if you say you're on the beach, remember how it's used for when we're talking about a surface? Like when Hamoud was here, he was saying, I'm on, or my phone is on the desk, right? In the other example, on is used for really when things are on a surface, or when we are talking about a mode of transportation, right? The beach is really a location, kind of a specific location like the home or the work or the school, and as a result we would use at for that example, actually. Is that, I know it takes, prepositions they take ridiculous amount of practice, a ridiculous amount of trial and error before you actually understand some of those applications, right? Because you need to be able to say or think of all the types of scenarios that are possible, right? So you can say, I'm at the park, I'm at the beach, I'm on a plane, right? I'm in my room, right? There are these general examples that we can grab, but when we make them more specific, things get a little, we see more and more happening. Like the possibilities are endless is kind of what I'm trying to say. So it takes time, it takes a good amount of trial and error to kind of figure that out. But I think you're doing a good job. I don't think you should be worried. But yeah, every now and then we see some examples that give us a little bit of, like, we call them head scratchers. You look at it like, oh, I'm scratching my head. I don't know about this one. So yeah, we'll be okay though. I think if you have any other questions, for sure let me know. But for that example, it would be at the beach, actually.
Okay.
Right. So let's take a look at this then, Ken, real quick. And just like with any other one of these classes, right? Whenever we are discussing an article, right? This is an intermediate class, but you're higher than intermediate, right? So we are going to be specifically focusing on the article, right? Specifically focusing on vocabulary that maybe you don't understand, Feel free
Okay.
to stop me whenever you see a word that, or whenever you have a question about any of this stuff, right?
Okay.
So let's see. Let me screen share this guy real quick. I'll put my glasses on too. My eyes were like giving me a hard time, so now I'm back to normal. Uh, let's see. Screen share this guy, and then okay. So 5 essential travel tips for Brazil 2014, and this is coming from I think a British newspaper or a British publication. So England have booked their place in the World Cup finals next summer, and if you're planning to make the trip, here's 5 essential tips, right? 5 very important things to know. Start saving now, okay? By now, you will have heard the horror stories. The price of hotel rooms doubling, trebling, quadrupling. Flights that would require a second mortgage to afford. Tickets that cost an arm and a leg, right? Unfortunately, most of the doom and gloom is justified. The cost of attending the World Cup will in most cases be stratospheric. Stratospheric. What does this word mean?
Stratospheric. Mm,
It's a very creative use of the word, actually.
mm, cost. Maybe the context suggests it's high cost.
Yes, exactly. But what is the stratosphere, though, Kat? Have you heard of the word stratosphere?
Oh, never.
The stratosphere is one of the layers of the atmosphere. So, for
Oh.
example, it's saying that the cost will be so high that it's like it's comparing it to the height of one of the layers of the atmosphere,
Mm,
right? So the cost will be stratospheric, or we say, you know how sometimes people say sky high, the cost will be sky high,
mhm,
or sky high costs. This is an even more creative way of saying sky high. It's saying it's
mm,
so high that it's reaching up to the second layer of the atmosphere, right? With accommodation likely to be the biggest expense. Accommodation is likely going to be the biggest expense, right? While there are certainly ways to make savings, one option would be to choose a base outside of the 12 host cities. The reality is that attending the World Cup will not come cheap, right? So any questions on this first tip?
mm. Yeah, I think it's okay.
Makes sense, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Think long and hard about city hopping, right? For some, major tournaments are best experienced on the move, catching a game here and another there while getting a taste of a number of regions. But Brazil may not be the best place to roll out that plan. The distance between host cities are not to be taken lightly. London is closer to Moscow than Manaus is to Porto Alegre, for example. The real issue, though, is that Brazil has no countrywide rail service. Those committed to ground hopping will either have to brave the airfares or resign themselves to patience-sapping coach marathons. Far more sensible would be to commit to one city or choose a cluster of venues that are not perilously far apart. The trio of venues in the Northeast, for instance. Right. So what are they saying in this paragraph then?
Maybe Brazil is huge. Some city of Brazil is far between Moscow and London,
Uh-huh.
and it doesn't have a railway enough railway system to connect each cities.
Exactly, right? So what did they suggest is a better idea?
Um, I just commented the word and copy with the cross reference that maybe I don't know, but in that circumstances, people have to rely on the airplanes.
Hmm. And they're also saying, far more sensible would be to commit to one city or choose a cluster of venues that are not perilously far apart. So, for example, if you want to go, you might not be able to go to Rio de Janeiro or the extremely beautiful, the all the huge cities, for example, right? Because they're far away from other places and it's very expensive. So it might be better if you just choose one city to just stay in during the entire World Cup. right?
Okay.
Northeast is a little bit cheaper than than the rest of the country, and then or you can choose maybe there are 3 cities that are close to each other. You can stay there because then you can experience 3 different stadiums, those kinds of things, right? So it's fascinating that they have a lot of different that they give a lot of ideas about that, because it is a big country. Okay, get lost. Yeah, go ahead, Ken.
What is the patient supping coach marathons?
Yeah, fantastic. This is a great question. What is something that saps? What does it mean when something is sapping something?
Sap. Kind of energy?
Yes, exactly. So something that saps something is reducing something, right? So we say some activities sap our energy, right? They make it very difficult for us to remain energized. In this example, they're saying a patient sapping activity, something that reduces your patience, is to go on a coach marathon, right? So people in America don't speak like this, but I am pretty sure that what they're saying is that you'd have to take a bus, right? You'd have to travel by bus because there's no rail service, right? You're not going to drive there. And and airfares might be very expensive. So you will either have to brave the airfares or resign yourself to patience sapping coach marathons. So all those, those big like travel buses, right?
I see.
You're sure there's going to be traffic, right? There's going to be traffic. It's going to sap your patience like crazy. So that's what they're saying. Right. So let's look at number 3. Get lost. Part of the reason Brazilians are so staggeringly talkative and helpful is that they need to be. When you leave the main tourist throng, catching a bus becomes a thrilling game of destination roulette, with no indication excuse me, of which services pass and where they go. You just have to ask someone, and if they don't know, you ask someone else. This is a country of enforced informational Samaritanism, right? But if that sounds frustrating, you're missing the point. Brazil is a country of great humanity, where 2 strangers will chat away as if they've known each other for years. The best way to get a taste of that warmth is to deviate from the guidebook, forget your stiff Western inhibitions, and embrace the flux. This is actually a really nice tip. I really like this tip. What's the author saying? And do you have any questions about any of the words?
Maybe sometimes kind of moving by bus cause some problem, but Brazilian people are very friendly, and maybe it could be fun or something.
Yeah, that's exactly what they're saying. Brazil is a country where you should really explore the society a little bit, right? And when they say it's a country of enforced informational Samaritanism, what does that mean?
So, what Samaritanism?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, have you ever heard the phrase "a good Samaritan"? Somebody is a good Samaritan.
Maybe came from Bible?
Yeah, it is something that is in Christian history, right? A good Samaritan is somebody who just helps people. For example, you see somebody maybe in a car accident, right? On the side of the highway, everybody is just driving by. No one cares. It's not their problem. A good Samaritan would be the one person that stops his car, gets out, and asks the person who had the accident, "Do you need anything? Can I help you with anything?" That's a good Samaritan, right? Someone who goes out of his way to help somebody, right? So this is a country of enforced informational Samaritanism, right? People will go out of their way to give you information if you seem lost, right? They're not gonna say, "Oh, this guy is from Japan, he's a foreigner. I'm just gonna let him stay lost." They are going to help you. So it's part of that idea of Brazilians being a very social people, right? So they do say this, right? They do say to join the flux, embrace the diversity that is this country. But number 4, don't expect to blend in, right? Brazil may be one of the most racially diverse nations in the world, but don't go harboring hopes of seamless assimilation. Brazilians have an impressively well-tuned gringo radar. The word gringo, at least in Spanish, means white people. So I don't know what it means in Portuguese, but I think it's the same idea. In Rio, for instance, I can barely walk 10 meters without someone gawping at me. It could be the skin tone, it could be the blonde hair, it could be the clothes, it could be none of the above. They just know, right? There is no malice behind it in most cases, just good-natured curiosity. And the flood of tourists expected to arrive during the Copa's Cup will probably reduce the novelty value. But don't be surprised if you attract a few stares on your travels. So what are they saying here?
Maybe someone, if you have a foreigners looks, someone stares at you on the street.
Exactly right. People are going to stare at you. Especially, I don't think I will be in that category, but people, for example, in different parts of the world, maybe Northern Europeans or the blonde-haired, blue-eyed Americans, they might be able to figure out that you're not from Brazil. Even though, to be honest with you, there are some Brazilians that have the same profile as someone from Northern Europe. They also have blonde hair, blue eyes. Brazil is really just a super diverse country, so interesting. And number 5, leave your city of God fantasies at home, right? If you delve into the shanty towns that fill the gaps in the urban sprawl of Brazil's cities, act respectfully, okay? Favelas are not film sets. They are neighborhoods full of real working people, most of whose lives are not half as bullet-riddled as you may have been led to believe. While the favelas do hold a certain allure for visitors, not least due to their creative, resourceful architecture, just remember that they are not there purely for the benefit of your Instagram account. Right? I actually really like this last tip as well. Right? What's this guy trying to say? Tom Adams, what's he trying to say?
Well, maybe favelas, I don't know, favelas is a kind of slum or?
It is exactly. It's the Portuguese word for a slum in Brazil, a favela. Yeah. So what's he actually saying here?
Why favela to hold certain favela? Maybe favela is going to favela is attractive. But don't forget, it's a kind of reality of the favela slum, because they are working, and maybe watching them curiosity is a bit kind of rude, actually. Maybe
It is, yeah. People go there and they have this because favelas have been mentioned in Western movies for many years, right? So some foreigners might have this idea of a favela being this dangerous kind of area. We should go and check it out. We should go and take pictures, and maybe who knows? It has a sense of adventure. It has a sense of reckless kind of daring. But we need to keep in mind that people live there. Millions of people live in favelas. I mean, there's that level of respect that you need to exercise, even though it has that romantic allure of being this being this exotic, kind of neighborhood. So, yeah.
Maybe the last sentence, maybe kind of, maybe it's not for the updated thing
Exactly.
for Instagram account.
Exactly. Yeah.
Ironically says so.
Yeah, you're not there just to take pictures. You're there to, if you're there, then you should respect the people that are there, right? Respect the culture that is there. It's not so you can tweet back every 5 seconds. Oh my God, I'm in a favela. I just saw a bullet hole. I just saw a drug dealer. I just saw, it's not that, that's not how people should behave. So that is that. And let me jump back so we can see what's going on here. So I was going to ask you then, Ken, I have a couple questions. We have about 10 minutes. I was going to ask you, where would you prefer to stay if you were going to Brazil for the World Cup? Where would you prefer to stay to keep the costs down, to keep your love, to keep your
Maybe
expenses low? Yeah.
staying in Rio de Janeiro only.
You would
uh,
only choose the big city?
because I rarely travel, so I'm not good at traveling kind of thing. Long
Hmm.
time bus travel could be exhausting for me. So
Yeah.
maybe, yeah, São Paulo or Rio. I stay.
So yeah, so you would follow that first piece of advice that guy said was that you should be focus on maybe one city and stay there the entire time,
Mm,
right? So it seems like that's what you would do more.
and hopefully I want to go there after that, actually, because hotel fee triple,
Quadruple, quadruple.
quadruple. That's
Yeah,
scary.
yeah. $100 night hotels become $400 a night.
Yeah.
I mean, crazy, right? It's going to be extremely expensive. That stratospheric level of expense, right?
Mm,
And do you think the traffic will be crazy?
I think so. And I remember the World Cup took place not this town, but closest close town from this town. But this town is a hub city of this area. So at that day, a lot of foreigner came, even in my town. So I realized, wow, World Cup is pretty popular, and many foreigner came for the World Cup now. So
And
maybe many people
what
will
happened
go.
traffic-wise? Was it really busy that day?
Actually I drove by my car.
Hmm.
So I don't use public transportation, but maybe Shinkansen line or bullet train lines or airplane lines maybe booked. Have already booked
Hmm.
beforehand, I guess.
Interesting. Yeah, it's crazy. I think when we look at the Brazil already has bad traffic in the big cities, right? So Sao Paulo, for example, some of the Brazilian students on Colingo have always shared the idea that 6 hours a day, they're just in traffic. I mean, that's impossible for me to believe. Absolutely impossible for me to believe, right?
Mm,
World Cup days, I mean, if you have massive traffic, all these buses, people trying to
mm,
fly into the city, get
mm,
around the city, thousands of tourists, right? I mean, I
mm,
don't know how that will impact their traffic, but probably not going to help the local population, right?
mm,
And would you say how do you think the Brazilian people are feeling
mm,
about this World Cup? What if you were in the streets today and you were interviewing Brazilians,
mm.
what do you think they would say?
Actually, I before I watched, the demonstration happened in Brazil,
Hmm.
maybe this I thought this more simple, but after I saw such a huge demonstration, maybe, and I asked Brazilian people who attend that demonstration, and what's happening there is more complicated, actually. Yeah. Maybe so.
The
Maybe they have a
demonstrations?
mixed feeling
Yeah,
about this. Yeah.
exactly. Why did they have the demonstrations, Ken? Do you happen to know why the demonstrations took place?
Yes, it is reported because of a lot of poor people are still in Brazil.
Hmm.
But even though government spend a lot of budget for World Cup and Olympic game,
Hmm.
so maybe it is reported that's the reason of that huge demonstration, and that Brazilian pe guy explained. That's the reason. But what is happening there is more complicated issue.
Hmm.
Yeah, maybe he explained it. He didn't explain more, so I didn't get it. But maybe kind of they might feel the mixed emotions
I think
about
people do
this.
have mixed
Yeah,
feelings. Yeah,
yeah,
I think it's very fair to say that people have mixed feelings because, you look at the disparity of wealth in Brazil is actually one of the highest in the
mm,
world, I would say. For
mm,
a country with that much wealth and that much potential, not a
mm,
lot of the common people are feeling that level of success, right? Based on my conversations with other Brazilians, even here at Colingo, right? I have heard that that's kind of a feeling among many Brazilians, right? So the idea really is maybe the government should improve the infrastructure of transportation services. Transportation was, I think, the main reason why those protests took place, because a lot of people were upset that the price of taking the public transportation was getting too high for poor people or for the lower middle class, right? And as a result, they were frustrated and they were demanding that things be changed, but maybe the government hasn't responded to those changes, to those calls for change, really, right? Instead, they've been focusing their attention on the World Cup, on a lot of they've been basking in the spotlight, right? They've been basking in the spotlight and not really focusing so much on improving the services for the poorest of the poor, or for a lot of the population. So for a significant percentage of the population. So I definitely do think there are mixed feelings on the ground, and I think that's the case with any large event like this, right? You'll always have people that are the naysayers. We say in English, somebody who's a naysayer is somebody who, oh, excuse me, I can't type today. Somebody who's a naysayer, wow, I really can't type. Somebody who's a naysayer is somebody who always says no to something, right? You offer a suggestion of something, of improving something, or of getting something in place, and the naysayers are always going to say no, no, no. It's better if we spend the money on education or whatever. I think the Olympics are important, but a lot of Brazilians feel that maybe other things are as important. Right?
Yeah, that's right.
Right. So we'll see. Maybe things get better. Maybe this will be one of the things that Brazil can walk away from this and say that we have achieved something really great, right? And what are some things that you absolutely want to do before you go? Before you travel? You did mention that you don't travel very frequently, Ken, but just for me to know, just for us, for the sake of conversation, let's say a week before the trip, what will you start doing? 3 days before, 2 days before, what are your plans?
For Brazil,
Yeah,
travel to Brazil,
yeah.
maybe I memorize some easy phrase in
Uh-huh.
Portugal.
Yeah, memorize some easy phrases. That's probably a good idea, right? What would you pack? What are some of the things that you would pack?
Pack. Actually, Brazil is the opposite side of the earth, so maybe travel to Brazil from here takes very long time, maybe 24 hours.
Hmm.
Yeah. So maybe I need to prepare my condition for such a long time travel.
Yeah.
And what else? But I like traveling, not so huge suitcase, maybe. I
Hmm.
want to my package as minimum as I possible. I
Hmm.
I can, so
Absolutely,
mm,
right? You
mm,
want to pack light so that you can travel more easily.
yes.
And what would you say I mean, would there be certain things that you would take because it's a tropical country?
Mm. Yes. It's spring there.
Uh-huh.
So I don't need to bring, kind of jumper or maybe, yeah.
Yeah,
So
things like that, right? I think maybe it would be, I mean, what are some things that you definitely want to take for because it's one of those kind of tropical countries. What would you say definitely you want to take?
tropical country,
Hmm.
uh, bug spray or something.
Bug spray, yeah, bug spray would be a great idea, right? What about maybe something else related to, um, uh, I don't know, honestly, like bug spray would be important. I think suntan lotion.
Mm-hmm.
If you go to the beach,
Um,
right, the beaches are going to be amazing, right? And
mm-hmm.
yeah, I think those are two things that I would definitely take.
Mm-hmm.
And it'll be interesting. It'll be cool to see what happens with what happens with the rest of the country or the rest of the world, how they prepare for this amazing experience. So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
Well, Ken, it was a great class. I enjoyed speaking with you about Brazil. I wish there was maybe someone else, maybe a Brazilian in the class, but I think we did a good job. Just me and you, two foreigners speaking about Brazil.
Mhm.
Any questions about the class? Any of the topics that we looked at? Once again, we looked at on, in, and at when it comes to prepositions of time, as well as before and after. And we looked at Brazil 2014 tips for success if you are traveling there. So, any questions?
No.
Cool. Did you have anything else you wanted to share, or I guess talk about?
Oh, nothing particular now. Yeah. So
You sure?
yes, I'm sure.
Awesome. I have another class coming up in about an hour, so
Mhm.
um, it'll be nice to see you if you want to come to that class as well.
Okay, thank you very much.
Great. Awesome, Ken. Have a great rest of the night.
Have a nice day. See
Yeah,
you.
you too.
Bye.
Bye-bye. And
Yeah.
different games, and it's just, I mean, we're even more interconnected than we were, 15 years ago, 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And you can stream games to your phone. You can stream games to. You don't really need to be in front of a TV to be a part of the action. It's almost continuous, no matter where you are, laptop, phone, tablet, whatever. You'll be able to participate in the actual proceedings of the game. So
And
it's interesting to see. Yeah.
I remember previous World Cup, not previous, previous one, yeah, maybe previous World Cup, I joined the Paltalk chat room, and people around the world, came together that room and talk about the game.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was fun. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't know. I mean, I think specifically with the World Cup, there's more international excitement.
Mhm.
Like, I think the
Yeah.
developed, like even in the developed world, right?
Yes.
Or actually, I should say, even in the developing world, there is a little bit more um, appeal for the World Cup because the World Cup is easy to understand, right? I mean, for me, at least, when I think of it, to try to explain to somebody that the Olympics is
Mhm.
because the Olympics people watch for specific sports,
Mhm.
like for example, my parents and a lot of people in the U.S. they really like to watch the gymnastics, like
Mhm. Yeah.
either the Chinese gymnastics people
Mhm.
you will either the Chinese gymnasts or also the Russian gymnasts. They
Mhm.
are usually some of the best. The U.S. also has, really. Hey Ken, how's it going? Good morning, or
Yes, good morning.
good
How are
afternoon, I
you?
guess. Good afternoon.
Good, yeah.
Yeah, things are good. It's here. It's early morning. That's why I'm getting confused. Good morning wise.
Yeah,
Uh,
I know. I'm
on how to make this experience the best that it could be. And I mean, are you looking forward to it? Do you watch soccer? Or football, I should say?
actually, I rarely watch the sports even because it's time consuming. But yeah, Olympic and World Cup or uh, kind of Major League or like a World Series or Japan Series. Kind of Japanese baseball tournament is called Japan Series, like Major League. Yeah, I watch these special sports event only.
Yeah, I think I'm the same way. Every once in a while, if there are friends of mine that are maybe getting together somewhere to watch something, then I'll join them more for the social experience.
Right.
But me myself, I don't usually just I don't have a habit of just watching sports when
Mm.
I need to or when I want to myself. Yeah.
And recently, social media is pretty helpful for kind of getting involving these events, social events, because people comment on Twitter or some other social media or Yahoo chat or something like that, and I joined with hashtag or such kind of social media. It's it creates more kind of social event feeling, even though I watching the game on TV.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's one of the things that I think now you have people like tweeting
Mm,
constantly what's going on, really good gymnasts.
mm,
And we try to watch gymnasts, people watch figure skating, people watch people watch the races,
mm,
swimming, like with Michael
mm,
Phelps last time,
mm,
things like that. But I don't know how many people actually watch like water polo or I mean those other
mm,
kind of those random sports that are just
mm.
kind of in the mix.
Yeah, actually, the baseball used to be an Olympic game,
Hmm.
and Japan won. Japan and America or Cuba or these baseball are pretty strong. So they won a final tournament or something. That's a big game in Japan. But stadium, I'm talking about Australian Olympic stadium. There is almost empty. Nobody
Yeah.
is not interested in baseball in
I
Australia.
I think it was like I think it was Sydney. I think 2000 I think they had the
Yeah.
Olympics. Yeah.
So
And
it was broadcasting here. Maybe it got a high viewers rate, but stadium were empty. So
yeah,
kind of yeah.
it's not worth it to them, right? I mean, I think they said they were going to introduce some other sport now as an Olympic sport. I think this time around, I don't know. Usually shooting and archery are both kind of fun. I like to watch some of the shooting matches, but overall, it's not something that is. Overall, the World Cup has enormous appeal, I think, all over the world because like you
Yeah.
you go into like the slums of
Right.
Brazil, you go into the developing world, even the poorest people know that the World Cup is happening.
But how about American time and Japanese time? Almost opposite. So
I know, I know. So how's life?
yeah, kind of. I'm spending peaceful night. Yeah. I just ate the dinner. Yeah.
Hmm. Fantastic, awesome. Like nothing new happening, nothing crazy going on.
Yeah. Nothing.
Just a relaxing night. That's good. That's good.
Mhm.
We're gonna get started in just a couple minutes probably. And let's see. Today we're going to be discussing. Our topic is going to be actually prepositions of time.
Mhm.
So I'm sure you know what those are. We've seen these topics before many times. We'll be looking specifically also in the second part of the class at the 2014 World Cup in Brazil.
Mhm.
So one of the things I'm very interested about for this trip is, or for this event, is how the logistics are going to work out for that. Because you have like hundreds of thousands of people, millions of visitors maybe
Mhm.
coming to Brazil to, you know, participate in that country's,
Mm.
um, you know, to massive their first ever World Cup, I believe. So it's going to be uh, a big event, I think, for a lot of different people. And the Brazilians, I think a lot of the different kind of tourist companies and international companies that are going to be helping the foreigners, they've come up with a list of 5 tips